On December 27, 2013, a devoted, hardworking dad, Werner Letterman, was on his way home from his job as a plumber, excited to see his only child, 14-year-old Tyler, and the new puppy he had given to Tyler just 2 days before for Christmas. Werner and Tyler were the best of buddies. They did everything together, and they were each other's complete world. Everything that Tyler knew and relied on came from his dad. His dad was his hero. His dad nurtured Tyler's great baseball prowess, and Tyler was such a strong pitcher that the two had hoped and dreamed that Tyler would either be the first in the family to go to college on a baseball scholarship or perhaps even be good enough to play professionally. But on that fateful day, only 2 days after Christmas, December 27, 2013, Werner Letterman never made it home to his 14-year-old son ever again. Because the right front tire of his sewage pumper truck he was driving blew out on I-95 in Palm Beach County, Florida, causing the truck to veer off the road, overturning and crashing into some trees. Unfortunately, Werner was instantly killed as a result of this catastrophic accident, leaving a heartbroken Tyler in the care of his grandmother, Susan. In this insider-exclusive Justice in America Network TV special, Justice in America, Werner and Tyler Letterman's story, our news team is on location in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, to meet with Tyler and their amazing legal team, Don Fountain and Julie Littky-Rubin, partners at Clark Fountain, La Vista, Ptrs, Littky-Rubin, and Whitman, to discuss all the extraordinary challenges and hurdles they successfully overcame to touch the hearts and souls of the jurors who awarded the family a verdict of $15,502,880 by advancing an ingenious product defect theory that although the chassis of the vehicle was not brand new, the redesign and modification created a new product, and therefore, Florida's strict liability rules and regulations for new vehicles did apply. This case exposed the industry that modifies commercial trucks and repurposes commercial trucks is largely unregulated, and there are no real regulations that apply to it. And in Florida, strict liability for product defects only apply to new vehicles. The Letterman verdict has awakened the industry to promote some level of safety and financial responsibility in that market. We expect that this verdict has alerted companies in the truck modification community to improve their safety practices. Don and Julie have earned reputations as unyielding trial lawyers who repeatedly represent individuals and families against big companies and the Goliaths of the world, and repeatedly win. And their amazing courtroom skills and headline-grabbing success rate continue to provide their clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. It is my great pleasure to introduce Don Fountain to the show. Welcome to the show, Don.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your firm.
My firm's been in business for about 30 years, doing the same thing the entire time. We handle product defect cases or personal injury cases where people or their families are injured. Been doing it in West Palm Beach, Florida, and throughout the country for 30 years.
It's always the little guy you represent.
Always the little guy, never insurance companies, never the big corporations.
We are here today talking about a case that, as I've told you off camera, I think is a brilliant strategy that you used. And you and your partner, Julie Littky-Rubin, who is on assignment, and we're going to bring her on at a later time to talk about the case too, took on this case, and you got an amazing result for a family on something that should have never happened in the first place. And that's why you're called in on these cases to begin with. So tell our audience a little bit about this case. It's called the Letterman's case.
Yeah, the Letterman case was very unique because it covered an aspect of the motor vehicle industry that is essentially unregulated and really unknown to a lot of people. It's where a company takes an old vehicle and they modify it, shine it up, repaint it, and resell it without doing any engineering work or any safety analysis.
Right, and I want to bring up this fact that this vehicle that they took, that they modified, had 700,000 miles on the chassis, right?
That's right. This was essentially a worn-out 700,000-mile tractor that was converted into a pumper truck.
Mm-hmm. And what's a pumper truck, by the way?
Pumper truck is one of those trucks you see that has a large tank on the back. This one had a 4,000-gallon tank that can haul oil, sewage, water, whatever.
Right. Originally, it was what type of truck?
It was a tractor, like semi that you could see a semi-tractor trailer driving down the road. It was the tractor part.
Yeah. So for our audience, they probably don't know this, but when trucks are built, you know, the brakes are engineered for the weight of the truck, for the specific design, right? How did the adding a 4,000 gallon, is that?
4,000 gallon.
Tank, and elongating it, how many feet?
6 feet.
6 feet. How did that change the engineering specs, or should have changed the engineering specs on the brakes and a variety of other things?
Well, when the truck was originally built as a tractor, it had a braking system and steering system that was designed to be used with a separate trailer. And of course, the trailer has brakes on it as well. When they modified the truck and extended it, they left the brakes as is. They didn't add any new brakes. They left the steering system as is, and they put much larger tires on there. So they changed the entire dynamic handling of this vehicle.
Why did they put larger tires on?
They put larger tires on it to handle the additional weight of the 4,000-gallon tank that the truck was never designed to handle.
Right. So they thought that would do the trick.
They go, well, we need more tire capacity, so let's put larger tires on. And they picked tires made in China, which was another mistake.
Now, this truck was sold to another company, modified, for 3.5 years. And that company owned it, nothing happened, correct?
They were using it, and during normal use, the truck was okay. They didn't have any problems with it.
Right. Then it was resold to the company that Werner Letterman worked for, right?
Yes. And once the truck, again, was used with no problems until an emergency happened, a tire failure.
Yeah, tell us about that emergency, by the way.
Well, the emergency happened when this larger, oversized Chinese tire on the front steer axle of the truck separated and blew out, rendering the truck completely uncontrollable.
And I think it's important because, you know, there's an old saying, the devil's in the details, right? I think it's important to bring up the fact that this Chinese tire manufacturer was hand-cooked. Is that right?
No, the tire company was Shandong Linglong.
Shandong Linglong. It was a steel belt radio, or they said.
It was a steel belt tire, but it was unique because it only had 3 steel belts, where the industry standard for a tire of this size is 4 steel belts.
What's the difference other than 3 and 4?
Strength and durability.
Okay. So it should have had that. Now, let me ask you something. This tire was being sold in the United States.
That's true.
Is there somebody that's supposed to regulate whether this tire meets the specs to be sold safely to consumers here?
Well, in order to legally sell a tire in the United States, a company must certify that it passes DOT, Department of Transportation standards, and this company did certify that it passed.
Did it?
According to our investigation and this particular tire, this tire was defective and would not have passed.
Now, please tell our audience, in the state of Florida, as in most states, there are statutes, there are laws that protect consumers, but generally for new products that are on the market, not necessarily for used products. How did that figure in this case?
That's a very important point. The consumers in America are very used to high safety standards for motor vehicles. The National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration takes care of that. For consumer products in our house, the Consumer Product Safety Commission. But for used products, a used motor vehicle that's modified and resold, there's essentially no oversight. There's no standards. There's no governance to make sure they're safe.
So you extend the chassis, as in this case, what?
6 feet.
You add bigger tires. You don't really look at the weight distribution. You can potentially have problems, as you did in this.
Yeah. The truck may seem fine when normal conditions exist, but when you have an emergency, like a steer axle tire failure, the systems in place on the truck were not sufficient to manage it because it had been modified.
Okay, so what was the defense? That was interesting. What was the defense in this case? What was their proposal? What did they say? They're not responsible or liable.
The defense said there's no regulations that says we can't do what we did, number one. And the truck was a used truck. So what do you want? You bought a used truck.
That's interesting because that brings me to our next point, because you redefined what that truck was. It was in essence a new truck.
It was. And this is an unsettled area of the law. And so this was kind of a case, the first of its time, where we said they took a used component, but they converted it into a new product.
Without re-engineering to see what the consequences was if it was used in other situations. Have you seen this case used now in other cases around the country?
Yes, I have. It's the briefing and the orders of the court have been cited around the country on this issue of whether or not modifications turn a, quote, used product into a new one.
Does it really depend on how much it's modified?
That's one of the criteria for sure.
Right. In other words, if it isn't greatly affected, then they don't have to do all of these changes, right?
A new paint job is not going to turn a used vehicle into a new one.
Really? Just kidding. As a result of this case, what do you want our audience to know about protection from modifications?
What we hope this case will promote is a sense that these vehicle modification companies do need to be regulated. They do need to be monitored. And you can't just have a bunch of shade tree mechanics, who I'm sure are nice folks, making engineering decisions about modifying a truck when they're not trained or skilled in that area.
And you ended up getting a $15.5 million verdict, right?
We did. We ultimately, the case started out against numerous defendants.
18, I think.
18 defendants. 17 settled along the way for confidential amounts that I can't disclose. And then the trial was held against the final defendant, the truck modification company.
Who held out that they weren't liable.
We're not liable. This is a used truck.
Stuck to that same story. I bet you the jury learned a lot, didn't they?
The jury, they caught on very quickly about what was happening here and that this was a problem that needed to be fixed.
Okay, we have your client with us right now, Tyler. So let's bring him on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Tyler Letterman to the show. First of all, Tyler, my condolences.
Thank you.
Your dad sounded like a great guy.
He was.
Tell our audience a little bit about your dad.
Oh, wow. Big teddy bear, first of all. Best baseball coach, second of all. And just there, not even for me, just for everybody in the community. Like if you didn't have a dad or you wanted a dad, open arms.
And he was a single dad, wasn't he?
He was.
So he was your main parent, wasn't he?
Main parent, main best friend, main coach, everything.
This happened when you were
13.
Tell us a little bit about that day.
I actually went dirt biking with a friend all day, and I wasn't supposed to. And so I was just trying to beat the clock by the time he got home, which is normally 7. And just by the time 7 came around, then it was 8, then it was 9, and then 2 cops were at the door. And then I was like, oh, goodness, what did he do?
And you're there alone?
Alone, 13, just waiting for him to come home. And just never did. Got picked up by 2 officers, taken to grandma's, and then just...
How long did it take you to?
As soon as they told us, I was like, the D word, just dead, deceased, and you don't want to believe it. You're just like, no way, he just left for work. And just me, my grandma, and my Uncle Charlie, just all broke down. It wasn't real, but it was. There's no describing that. You just, like you got hit by a truck.
How have things progressed for you over the last 10 years? Your grandmother was there for you, right?
I wouldn't say it really progressed. He's still gone. But I have my own family now. So I'm just trying to follow his footsteps, I would say. And just trying to be the best dad I can be. And I like being told I'm a good dad,
Reminds you of your dad, right?
People say I look just like him. I love hearing that. And people say, like, I coach my son's baseball team. And they're just like Werner,
Now we're sitting next to someone that is probably very close to you and was involved very much in this case. Did one heck of a job, and I'm saying that, I mean it. What do you have to say about the work that he did?
You can't even put words on it. It was almost, a 6-7 year case? He always updated me, always kept me. I remember one specific time, we were all sitting in the courtroom and they were just laying it on my grandma, the opposing.
Yeah. What do you mean laying it on your grandma?
Bullying her, I would say. And Don's just like, look at the jury. And the jury's just giving all these nasty looks. And he goes, that's what we want. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And I went to the bathroom, stepped out, collected myself.
In kind of a way, he almost became a surrogate dad, didn't he?
Oh, he was amazing. This is my dad, my partner, whatever you want to put on it. He was that guy. He was that guy. His closing, is that what you call it, the closing statement? He just, bam, laid it out like crazy professionally.
Yeah. How long, Don, did it take for the verdict to come in?
The jury didn't deliberate very long. I think my memory was about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and then they had to go back in because...
Was that question asked, how much money can we award? Like in the movie The Verdict?
The case was going well, and we were, of course, worried about them awarding too much money where the appellate court might want to take it away, so we had to be sensitive of that as well. But the jury, they got it very early in the case, we felt, and it turned out very well.
Did you meet any of the jurors afterwards?
I met three to four of them. I remember them very vividly. There was a teacher, a mechanic, and I think the other one was a teacher as well. There's two teachers, two very nice ladies.
Well, hey, again, my condolences. Sometimes, you hear the saying, everything happens in life for a reason. Look at you today, proud dad, right? Leading your life, great friend sitting next to you, who happens also to be a great lawyer, too. I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thank you, Don, for everything.
Werner was a father. Growing up, Werner was one of those, what can I say, persistent children. But he grew up into the finest young man I've ever known. And when Tyler came along, that was the end of any partying, any drinking, anything else. His focus was on Tyler. Unfortunately, Mother didn't feel the same way. So when he was about 12 months old, it was just Werner and Tyler. And he changed diapers, and he mixed formula, and he dropped him off at daycare, picked him up after work, brought him home, gave him a bath, put him to bed. And then as Tyler got older, baseball came into the picture. And baseball was the highlight of their life. He started with Tyler when he was 4 years old in T-ball. And Werner coached every Little League team, and he managed every Little League team, and he went all out for these kids. And he was not just a father to Tyler, but he was a father to practically every kid in that trailer park where they lived. I mean, every Friday night, he would pick up 7, 8 pizzas, and all the kids in the neighborhood would come, and they would have pizza for dinner Friday night. He was the kindest, hardest working person I ever knew. That was it. It was just baseball all the time. And after junior high was high school. And he did the first semester playing baseball at St. Aloysius. And then his father was taken from him. And it was horrible, okay? It was really, really horrible. Because when we told him, he looks at me and he says, "Grandma, now I have no one." And today, it's like watching Werner all over again, because Tyler has a son, and he's managing their T-ball team. Now he has a little girl, too. And he's in a good place. I miss Werner. He was the best father that ever lived. And I think he did that. I think what made him do that is because he grew up without a father. My husband didn't. He just got transferred to New Orleans. That was the last we saw of him. And I worried about that because sometimes, when you grow up without a father, you don't become a really good father. It could go the other way. But it didn't. Werner was dedicated. His whole life was Tyler.
An integral part of this case was your partner, Julie, correct?
She was.
And she can't be with us today, but she's on assignment, and we're going to bring her right now.
I think the single most important message that came from this trial and sent the message to manufacturers of these vehicles is that even if the vehicle may have 60 or 70,000 miles on it, even if you are going to reconstruct it and transform it into something totally different, the reality is that it is still a new vehicle. It is a dangerous instrumentality. It is something that requires proper engineering, proper construction, proper maintenance. And I think part of the problem with National Truck in our case was that when it was repurposing this old vehicle into something new, it forgot those important principles, and it didn't take that into consideration. And the idea that we can just put some new wheels, put some new equipment on a truck and call it a truck, and not really consider the engineering values and how important that is. I think that was one of the hugest and most fatal mistakes that cost Werner Letterman his life. And certainly that would be the message to send to manufacturers or modifiers of used products.
Don, you also used an expert, and his name was?
His name was Bryant Buckner.
And what is he an expert in? Accident reconstruction?
He's an engineer first and foremost, a failure analysis expert, and he does accident reconstruction as well.
Okay, he can't be with us today, but we now have him on camera right now, so let's go to him.
The Letterman project was unique and interesting because it clearly was a big, heavy, strong vehicle. I've got a Class A CDL. I'm a failure analysis engineer. When you walk up and look at that truck, it screams, I'm capable. However, when you really started peeling back the layers of it, you found that it had been dressed up to look strong and capable, but it really had a fairly timid under body to it, and a front axle especially, and the steering components and whatnot. So normally we start with the assumption that the vehicle is over-designed, and then we look at what the failure contributed to the failure, where the weaknesses were. But this particular truck had weaknesses designed into it, not by the original manufacturer. It was originally a tractor trailer, and then it had been converted into a pumper truck. But in that conversion process, it had been given a very big, heavy, strong looking tires, but really and truly the axle was a light axle. The steering components were not very robust. And so once again, as soon as it began being stressed, it kind of, it wasn't able to handle the load, which we normally in design engineering want to over-design components. Well, these were actually under-designed components. And so once Mr. Letterman got into a situation of needing the strength of a real truck, he didn't have it. Quest Engineering helps improve safety through our post-accident analysis and our failure investigations, because we actually get deep into the structure of the vehicles or what happened. And most of our government regulations and most of our inspections really start with the presumption that these units, these boats, these trucks, these vehicles are well designed, and the inspectors are really looking to see if they've been maintained. But what we have to do is we go in and look very deeply into what's really happening, and through our work, we find failure modes that other people may not be finding. So like in the Letterman project, it was really the axle and the steering system, the overall frame that really won't get looked for by most investigators, because the assumption is that that is a robust member, that the original designers took care of that. When in Letterman, they didn't take care of that. Same thing in the Malibu boat. It looked very robust, but once we get into the details, we actually find weaknesses that had been overlooked in the design that most inspectors can't find. So by revealing that, industry can learn about it. The government can learn about it. Those things can be brought forth where they can, the manufacturers can understand them. And many times other manufacturers are interested in our work and what we discovered to help them with their products.
when you get verdicts like this, you get a lot of attention because you almost reinvented the law, as it should be, as it should be. You get calls from people all around the country because you try cases all around the country.
We do. I handle cases throughout the United States. The cases that we typically get are unique or different cases that don't always fit the standard mold, so that they do tend to get some attention.
What criteria do you use to determine which case you want to take?
The number one criteria for any case is the client. You need to have a good client for sure. You need to have a reasonably explainable defect theory and problem. And of course, you need to have a case that has good facts because of the time, energy, and money you have to invest in these cases.
Well, I want to thank you. Congratulations again. Great verdict, great client, and thanks for doing God's work.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.